Okay, should I start, Mr. Omar?
Yes, Dr. Ghanen, if you can just wait another minute, because the number of attendees are increasing.
Okay.
Dr. Richa, if you can just represent again, just and represent again. Yes. Yes, this is good. Dr. Ghanem, we are good to go now.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and it is nice to see you again and to meet you again. I would like to welcoming all of you in our fifth module in this training workshop about future of education. We're glad and happy and proud to see you all here again, and to remind you that this is not the end of the journey, by the way, it could be the beginning. So again, most welcome. I and my colleague, Dr. Richa, will be our pleasure to present and to interact with you for today's module. Actually, before I introduce myself, and I'd like to ask my colleague, Dr. Richa, to present herself, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richa Goel, and I'm there with Professor Ghanem here to discuss a few points related to assessments today with you. Now, this workshop is designed in a question and answer way. So we'll present a concept to you and we'd ask a question. Once you answer that question, we'd provide our feedback. So it's very important for all of you to participate in this workshop.
Thank you, Dr. Richa. Dr. Richa, what is your background? May they like to know?
I have several qualifications. So I have a master's in applied linguistics from the University of Oxford. I have also an MPhil in English language teaching and a PhD. I have been teaching English language in university settings for the last 14 years. And my research interests include material design and motivation in learners.
Great, motivation, very important. So I think you have a lot to motivate our participants today, inshallah, to be very active. Thank you for sharing me this workshop. And my name is Ghanem Al-Bustami. I am a professor of education psychology. And I work for a long time in academia and other related areas, training, workshop, teaching, teacher preparation programs, childhood, etc. Psychometrics, one of my areas, which is mean that I have something in evaluation and assessment as tools, as structure, as a way to evaluate and to assess our learning process. Our previous modules presented to you during last week about learning and teaching by Dr. Srethi, about innovation in teaching and learning by Ms. Robina, and about developing and teaching an effective lesson by Dr. Daniela, and student engagement in diverse class by our colleague, Dr. Reem. So this means that now you have huge and a lot of knowledge about the learning, about the teaching, about the materials, about the classroom environment. Now, what is the next after we learn and improve and develop our skills, okay? And we are sure that you have a lot of knowledge and skills. So before also we start, let me remind you about the rules and the conditions to participate. There is two windows, one for questions. So you are most welcome to ask your questions. The other one for chatting, so you can send your comments. And the most important one is the live participation. So you're allowed to participate, just you need to raise your hand and our technical team will help and support to allow you to speak and to give your opinion. Here, as you see in this slide, the code and the way how to start and how to communicate with us during this workshop. I believe that you almost familiar about because you attend the previous 4 modules and you know about everything now. Our workshop today and on Sunday, so we have 2 days, will be, as my colleague Dr. Richa mentioned, about the assessment, about the evaluation. And of course, we aim behind this to lead you and lead ourselves as teachers, having this highly respected knowledge and experience, to put all these ideas together in front of all of us and to check what we have now, what we need to do, what we have to do in the future, because the term of assessment future should be aligned with the future of education, future of learning. As I mentioned, it is not the end of journey. It could be one of the phases ending by evaluate our learning or our outputs or learning outcomes, but it means that we need to start again. It is a cycle. It is a long span stage and process. Anyway, as also Dr. Richa mentioned that we will use the same procedures and the same method. It depends on discussion. It will be open discussion. You are all encouraged, please, to participate, share us your ideas. We will put all these ideas together and by the end hope that we can come with a good vision about what is the future, what we need to do. Are we going to change everything or are we going to just modify or to consider such factors may help us to face the future in order to lead our students to become better learners, to support, to maintain their future. It is our responsibility. I like the term about that assessment for accountability. Accountability means that people, community, all market accountable and ask government what's going on. They want to know how their learners do and perform. In addition to all of these, we have a lot of questions, as also Dr. Richa mentioned, to answer them together. Dr. Richa, I want to tell them about how to use Menti?
Yes, so I think they already know, everyone already knows about Mentimeter, but here are the instructions. You have to go to menti.com and you have to enter this code. So either you go to menti.com and enter the code, or you just use the QR code to enter Mentimeter, okay? And you can ask a question using either, if you want to speak, you can raise your hand using raise hand button on Zoom, or you can use the chat in Zoom.
Okay.
Now,
yes, Dr. Richa.
So this is a quote which has been attributed to Maslow. It has also been attributed to a few others, so we really don't know who said these words. But I would like you to read this and to tell me, how is it related to the future of assessments? Anyone? I suppose it is tempting, if the only tool you have is a hammer, to treat everything as if it were a nail. So what are the thoughts that come to your mind when you read this? Anyone?
Okay, I see here that treating all students as though they are the same, are not the same,
Okay.
not others,
Yes.
think
Yes.
outside the box. Yes,
Yeah,
these are very
exactly.
interesting comments. Thank you, Shaima. Thank you, Tawfiq, and others. Okay, treating all students as though they are the same type of learner. Yes. Differentiation, aggressive. I like this term, aggressive and differentiation.
Yes.
Aggressive in a positive way, of course, being serious. Yes, great. Same type for or of assessment for all. Yes, these are very interesting ideas. Yes.
This quote refers to the law of instrument or cognitive bias that leads us to rely overly on one familiar tool. It also describes the fixedness and lack of willingness to try new methods of assessment. To some extent, I believe it also problematizes the validity of assessments for future purposes. So here in this webinar today, we are going to discuss all these concepts, and we are going to see how we can make our assessments relevant and valid for our students.
Yes,
Okay.
great. Thank you, Dr. Richa. Also, we want to be sure that we all gain some skills and knowledge about or help us to demonstrate a critical understanding of the principles of designing evaluation plans, demonstrating an appropriate selection of teaching feedback, assess factors that influence students, because this is very important, critically evaluate the different educational approaches used in assessment. Actually, these are very important skills and knowledge. We all need them. Right, Dr. Richa?
Thank you, Professor Ghanem. I would like our participants now to answer this question. Why do you think our assessments important? Why do we need to evaluate or assess in the first place? Why do we need to have assessments? And we see very interesting answers popping up here. Creating a student profile, help us, what did we learn to evaluate our students? To know about child level, yes, to place them at a certain level, we need to evaluate them to check their understanding so that we can give them valuable feedback for progress. So assessment is important both for teachers and students. Students grow through assessments, and teachers would change their learning methodology once they see the results of assessments. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, this is a great idea. Let me also give one more point and open discussion about the fact that assessment to guide improvement. As you mentioned, all this importance and showing the importance of assessment. This is right. But what we mean by being function and importance using assessment? Why? It is not only for grading. I see a lot of nice comments here that it is to motivate students, it is to help both teachers and students, community as well. It is also help teachers and help the stakeholders all to understand what's going. Now, the important fact here that guiding improvement, improve what? Improve curriculum, improve learning, improve learners, personalities, abilities, aptitudes, their attitude very important. Let me also add one important fact about the importance of assessment. Actually, it reflects the function of assessment. We are not grading and give grades to our students just to know or to learn or to inform others that I have 10 students get like high grades. No, what this means to us, the data should give meaningful and should be used in order to help planners and policies makers and authority of education to understand overall the education to be aligned with our expectation. And from this point, the future of assessment should be considered. The question now, should we change everything or what we need to change? Okay, Dr. Richa.
Thank you, Professor. Okay, so many of the participants have already answered the next question. What is the difference between assessment and evaluation? Professor, what would be your feedback to their response?
Well, I read here that there is a lot of ideas, very interesting. Assessment is ongoing, evaluation is at the end. Assessment could be used to build knowledge, and evaluation used to measure outcomes. Yes, let me say that the main difference is that assessment actually based process, evaluation based products. Assessment actually help us to get information, data about what is the case, okay? So the purpose of assessment different little bit from evaluation. Evaluation based products means that we want to judge both the teaching, the learning, and the outcomes, including the learner, behavior, attitude, again, personality, how they prepared to face the challenges, how they prepared to be ready to use and to function their knowledge and skills in the real life. As you see here, guys, in this slide, these are some basic of comparison between assessment and evaluation. So both actually serve and complete each other's. In the reality, I cannot separate. I do assessment in order to evaluate. I do assessment in order to get information and to draw in my mind, in my papers, to prepare, to be ready, what I need to modify, to adapt, to teach, to consider. But evaluation also give and passing the judgment based on set of standards. Doesn't mean that we don't have standards in assessment. Of course, we have to build our assessment tools based on standards. But the standards in evaluation, more national, okay? These are some examples about the difference between assessment and evaluation. If you back a little bit, Dr. Richa, to their answers about the different also, there is a lot of ideas, maybe we can also mention too. Assessment to the instructor could be true, and evaluation to the school and to the organization overall. So this is also true, but even evaluation used for instructors or for instruction or for teachers. Assessment to evaluate different learning style. Yes, could be true also, because when you assess your students, you are diagnosing them, you are know how they respond, how they interact, how they study. Right? I think there is a lot of, again, ideas included here. What do you think, Dr. Richa?
Yes, these are all very great ideas, and thank you for your feedback, Professor, on these ideas. Now we will move on to a short quiz about types of assessments. Now, I'm 100% sure that most of the participants here already know about these different types of assessments, but we have a short quiz here just to review these different types of assessments. So here we have the first question. An assessment that is designed to assist the learning process. Okay, everyone knows it's a formative assessment. Very good. Let's, oh, okay, 6% say it's summative and 94% say it is formative. So it is formative assessment. Professor, would you like to throw light on this, the difference between formative and summative assessments?
Yes, actually, I'd like to say that formative assessment is designed to assess the learning process by providing feedback to the learner, which can be used to identify strengths and weaknesses and hence improve future performance. Formative also is most appropriate where the results are to be used internally by those involved in the learning process, students, teachers, curriculum, developers. But summative assessment is used primarily to make decisions for grading or determine readiness for progression. Typically, summative assessment occurs at the end of an educational activities and is designed to judge the learner's overall performance. In addition to providing the basis for grade assignments, summative assessment is used to communicate students and to understand their abilities and to connect or to align between students' abilities to the external stakeholders, example, administrators and employees. They want to work together to understand and to build their future mechanism. Let me also add important fact that, again, we cannot separate, I mean differentiate between formative and summative also can be separate because both complete each others. I need to understand the students in the classroom. I need to evaluate how this leads them to apply by the end outside the classroom in the real life. We'll talk about some approaches showing how to align, how to evaluate, how to assess your students considering this life world outside the classroom. But I hope this help you guys to differentiate a little bit between formative and summative. Let me also add that formative cannot be help or not help enough to evaluate or to assess all kind of skills, right? Because in formative, actually, what we assess what happens in the classroom. There are a lot of skills, right? Due to the new definition of learning, brain connection, a lot of ideas, constructivism. These are adding a lot of ideas and knowledge to our students, cannot be easy measured or evaluated by formative. So we need to consider both. Okay, Dr.
Thank you, Professor, for your very valuable feedback. Let us go on to the next question here related to types of assessments. So this is a type of assessment which is most often used to provide formative feedback. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your response. And the correct answer is, the correct answer is definitely the informal assessment. Informal assessment is the one which is used for formative feedback. Okay, so the next question for you. They've already answered this. Final assessment is used for summative decision making. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, that's right. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This assessment focuses on the steps or procedures underlying a particular ability or task. So we are looking at steps or procedures in this type of assessment. Okay, everyone likes process more than product in this case. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Process is the right answer. As the name suggests, process, it looks at the process. Yeah, okay. And this assessment has only one correct response. So we have two, convergent or divergent. Professor, would you like to comment on this? 82% say convergent and 16 say divergent.
Well, actually, these are two important approaches or type of assessment, divergent and convergent. When we assess students in particular skills or information, we are limit them to that skill or to this skill. In divergent, actually, what teachers need to understand that they, when they expand and use different questions with different answers in deep, okay, this will help the students to think more and to use their own knowledge and to come with the new ideas. So in divergent assessment actually help us more to understand how students think, what is their background and their abilities and aptitudes in order again to prepare and to design our materials. And also it serves us to be more aware about their background. This is very important in order to prepare them for the next step or the next stage. What kind of, for example, future colleges they can attend, they can apply to. Divergent reflect the ideas, the creativity. So if teacher need to improve or aware about the fact that teaching and learning should lead our students to be able and more able to solve their problems. So I have to use divergent assessment. The example, when you give them multiple choice question, for example, when you give them only 4 options and one only true, one answer or one option only true, it means that you use conversion, because you will ask them to memorize the fact and answer the question. When you give them more than 2 or 3 almost correct answers, right? They will think more, they will analyze more, they will combine between these different ideas, okay? So this is the way to, again, create or develop or use divergent assessment by using, for example, the multiple choice. Other option, for example, when you give your students questions about true or false, for example, and it is not enough, because if they say yes or no, it could be true, but without thinking. But if you ask them to justify their answers, you look, it helps them to, okay, become with more ideas and think more, and to relate ideas to each others, and to find connections, and to analyze, etc. So I believe myself that divergent help more to understand not only the way of how students think, but also to improve their knowledge, because by the end we want our assessment to be part of learning process. It is not only for grading, it is to help them to learn from how they think, how they use their knowledge, etc. I think at this point, maybe if you agree with me, Dr. Richa, I'd like to hear from our respected teachers here, their opinion also, about and about the convergent type of test or assessment.
Also, I see that Dr. Costa's hand is raised. So would you like to add something, Dr. Costa? And I would request Mr. Omer to unmute his mic so that he can contribute to the discussion.
Sorry, I can see here only Wafa raised her hand.
Dr. Costa, he lowered his hand. I think it was raised earlier. Okay, so we will move on.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So these are the types of assessments that we have discussed already. Now, I would like you to tell me what are the subjects you teach so that we can take our discussion from there. Every assessment that we have is subject specific. So I would like to see which subjects you teach.
English, science, math.
Okay. So we have.
Do you think, Dr. Richa, that is there any like assessment or different type for each subject, or we can use same for all subjects? What do you think?
Well, we need to have assessments specific to subjects. For example, the rubrics that we create for assessments. For example, I'm an English language teacher. So the rubric I create for assessing proficiency in English language would have a lot of points related to language and grammar. But if it's a subject such as math or biology, then probably on the rubric you have more of core content rather than language abilities. Now, this is a problematic area to discuss because we have students in English medium settings, and sometimes they suffer and they tell me that they can't do well despite all their efforts because of their proficiency in English. So I think we need to focus a bit on that, and especially when we ask them to write their projects and their essays and, you know, more subjective work, we need to focus on the validity of assessment.
Let us, Dr. Richa, hear from them how they think, what in their mind about assessment in different ways for these different subjects. If you agree with me, we can ask our colleagues here to hear the ideas. For example, I need to hear from science teacher and English teacher and Arabic teacher, history, etc. So this can help us to understand if there like some differences between the assessment due to the different subjects. What do you think? So I like to hear from you guys about your opinion toward this issue. Is there a different assessment tools or way, or should we differentiate, or we can use same to evaluate or to assess students in all subjects by using the same, for example, exam or tool? What do you think? Like to hear from you, so please go ahead. Waiting to hear from you.
Please, who would like to participate? Just please press the raise hand button.
Yes, please.
Okay, we have Miss Alia.
Miss Alia, go ahead.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
عليكم السلام.
أنا راح أتكلم بالعربي بتسمحوا لي؟ لأنه يعني أنا معتمدة على المايكروسوفت ترانسليتر في التواصل معكم، صعب يعني أتكلم باللغة الإنجليزية. تخصصي Islamic Studies وأسيستنت بروفيسور. راح أتكلم عربي ولا إيش؟ أيوة دكتور.
I think it's okay. So the translation in both sides, English to Arabic and Arabic to English?
The translation is available. Who would like to, Ms. Alia, she would talk in Arabic. And if anyone would like to see the translation in English, they can go to Microsoft Translator and select the English.
Okay, Ms. Alia.
شكرا.
What's your opinion?
شكرا دكتور. هلا حقيقة استخدام سلالم التقييم بتعتمد على المحتوى الدراسي اللي المعلم راح يدرسه. أنا مثلا من خلال خبرتي دراسات إسلامية كنت مثلا استخدم سوكريتيف سيرفيمونكي، وفعلا بيأهلك انك تعرف تتبع مواطن تقدم الطلبة في الموضوع او في المساق اللي انت راح تطرحه، وهل انت فعلا حققت مخرجات واهداف العملية التعليمية. فمثلا انا كنت اعمل التغذية الراجعة عن طريق السيرفيمونكي قبل ما ابدا موضوعي او درسي. أجد إنه الطلبة من خلال الاستبيان اللي حلل لي إياه سيرفيمونكي إنه عندهم السؤال الأول والثاني ممكن كان خطأ، فهذا بخليني أطرح مناقشة أكثر وأعمق، يعني أتبع وين مواطن الضعف في الطلاب في هاي المحتوى التعليمي اللي أنا حابة أنقل لهم إياه. هاي مثلا من ناحية سيرفيمونكي كثير كان يمكنني في تتبع مواطن الضعف والقوة لدى الطلبة، وأيضاً إني أحقق أهداف ومخرجات عمليتي التعليمية.
Okay, Ms. Alia, this is great. The idea that, as you mentioned, you can use this tool in order to learn about the students and to engage them more, etc. I'd like just to translate to my colleague here, Dr. Richa. Did you get the idea? Ms. Alia mentioned that she used Monkey, for example, survey to get feedback from her students in order to learn and to know about the level of learning outcomes, the achievement of her students, and to find the weaknesses. And it is like a diagnostic way to learn about students. This is very
كمان يعني العفو منك دكتور، كمان كان يعطيني سوكريتيف، يعني انه لما سوكريتيف يأشر من خلال يعطي الإجابة الصحيحة للطالب، يعني معايير التقييم أو تطبيقات التقييم مش زي الامتحانات اللي احنا كنا نجريها بالطريقة التقليدية، تصلح وتحط يعني تصلح الخطأ أو الاختيار المتعدد من غير ما يعرف الطالب وين خطأه. سوكريتيف لا، كان يعني مباشرة ينقل الطالب للإجابة الصحيحة. وهذه
Thank you, Miss.
شكرا.
Thank you, Miss Alia. Thank you, Miss Alia, for your great contribution. We got the idea.
أنا عندي سؤال، يعني كان العفو منك، سؤال بس واحد، إنه في معايير التقييم كيف إحنا نقيم العصف الذهني للمجموعات؟
Yes. Thank
يعني
you for this
هو
question.
التحدي اللي أنا بدي أسأله، ويا ريت تجاوبوني عليه.
Yes, we will answer a lot of questions. Yes, and this is in our minds. Actually, Miss Ali asked about how we can evaluate hard to assess skills. For example, the brainstorming, the collaboration, the teamwork, etc. Yes, we will come to this point, inshallah, very soon. But before we finish this part, let us hear from other teachers, if possible. I like to hear from, for example, math teachers, English teachers, about the way they assess and how they assess their students, in order to come with the fact that do we need to change? If we need to change, what are the reasons behind change? Okay, before this part, if you allow us, Dr. Richa, to hear from other colleagues about how they evaluate or what they use to assess their subject. Yes, please.
Yes,
Hi, how are you doing? Yeah, hi, how are you doing? Actually, it's very interesting topics, whatever you're giving here. In fact, I depend a lot on the project-based assessment. I make them like
What subject, in what subject you teach, Miss?
I teach sociology, and I'm the counselor of the school. So this is a thing, a CAS counselor, and this is a thing that is really important to make them work together, collaborate, and integrate with other subjects. And we usually do like combined projects, so it reflects their work. They can record things, and they can like assist each other's, help each other's in the same time. Teamwork is there, critical thinking is there, brainstorming is there. It's all combined in under a project-based assessment. This is what usually I do.
Yes, thank you so much. This is very interesting, and it is also in our mind when we come to this point. We will also ask for more discussion. This is very true, because I believe myself that many of us still confused a little bit about how to evaluate, how to assess this hard skills to be assessed right. I mean that when students work together, sometimes teachers will be confused that give high grade to X member in the group, or what to evaluate, how to evaluate the students' participation, the level of their contribution. All these things should be considered and built based on rubric. And later, Dr. Richa will start discussion about rubric, and we'll give some examples about how to create rubric and be fair, and how to give grades, for example, or evaluation, either using oral or written evaluation based on project. Yes, project-based learning as well, project-based assessment. Okay, one more case, if you please, to hear from again math or science teachers, how they evaluate, how they assess. Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, hello.
It's Christine.
Yes, Christine.
I'm an English teacher. The first thing I think that the teachers should know is that we assess students to check their knowledge, that they get the idea or the objectives of the lesson, and to check their creativity, that they can add something to this lesson that we didn't mention in classroom. I'm with, as an English teacher, I can assess my students not only with reading comprehension assessments or grammar. They just give them a sheet of paper and they have to fill in the paper. I'm with creating their own type of presentation with role play in the classroom. They can role model characters. They can give speeches. Like, for example, I play in the classroom the speech of Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, and I support them to make speeches themselves in order to have more self-confidence, to be good people in the community, not only in the classroom. So kinds of assessments may vary. And I think that this not only in English, we can apply it for all subjects, even in history. They can role model the play that happened long time ago, or in science, or in chemistry, or whatever. So I'm against traditional assessments, just giving a sheet of paper to the students. I'm with everything new in order to let them create, in order to let them creative students, not shape their thoughts or their minds. This is it. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And this is actually lead me directly to also mention to the importance, as you said, that you evaluate their comprehension, their way of response, etc., which means that you use assessment for the purpose of function. What is the function of assessment? I want to see how much my students able to use their knowledge, not only in the classroom. And this another issue, we'll back to it again when we come to answer the question, why we need to change? What is the future of assessment? As you mentioned, there is some traditional tools. We are not changing the tools. We are changing the way using of these tools, because giving them paper or pencil and paper exam, and the reality, could be good, but the function, the reason, right? The prediction level, which is one of the functions of assessment, diagnosis, preparing, providing students with information about themselves, what they need to do to improve themselves as well. Okay, so keep this in your mind. When we develop the assessment, okay, we need to ask ourselves, what is the purpose? What I aim behind using this assessment or using this tool in particular? Test or exam or project, group work, etc. The function change because the learning change. Why the function change? The function of assessment from century 20 actually till today totally changed because, you know, technology now, distance learning now, online learning now, and these are very important to consider and call for. Think seriously about change. I know all of us maybe stop a little bit toward the term of change, but we can do it, okay? One more example. Thank you, Christina, for your interesting example. One more example, if you allow me, Dr. Richa, to hear from other colleague here, please. Yes, Mr. Omar, is there anyone raise hand and like to?
Yes, excuse me, may I talk?
Yes, Mr.
Tariq.
Yes. Yes, please, go ahead.
I'm chemistry teacher at Al Nahda National School. In chemistry, in general, we have a special type of assessment that is not present in many topics outside the field of science, like practical assessment. We assess the ability of students to conduct the practical work correctly. We assess their ability to use the pieces of apparatus, each piece of apparatus in the proper way. So we not only assess their knowledge about the experiment, also when they use, so there is practical work, we will do this in the lab. We assess the work of each student. At the beginning of each assessment, before the assessment, when we set the learning outcome, each learning outcome includes not only knowledge, also there are some skills, practical skills.
Yes.
We need to assess these skills. So we put some rubric or criteria to which level
Yes.
students
Yes.
could do the work correctly. Okay, we set, for example, numbers. If he achieved the objective and could do the work 100% correct, then we put him, for example, for him 5, then 4, and so on. So
thank you.
Not only the knowledge, also the practical skills, and this can be done on paper. And this is not enough because the student can write, but when we take him to the lab, is he able to use each apparatus and to take into consideration the risk assessment that he learned before properly or not?
Yes.
This is the way. So many ways of assessment. And this will allow us to give the student feedback about where he failed, where he could do half or part of the work, and where he needs to improve. Also, we get our feedback about the achievement of each student or each group of students.
Thank you, Mr. Tariq. Yes, these are very, very valid points.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, actually, you almost cover many, many ideas we are going also to discuss, like, for example, the purpose, as I mentioned, the function of assessment, and how to give our students feedback. Before challenges, Dr. Richa, if you also allow me to add one important fact about the main purpose, the main idea also behind effective and good assessment is to get more out of test results. As Mr. Tariq and others mentioned, that I want to learn with my students about ourselves. So I need to use the right, the results in the right way. So it is not only grading or scoring them. Getting more out of test results, it means that the exam should be built based on the standard, okay? The big challenge now, if you want to move to the next part, the big challenges we face actually, that many of us, maybe when they come to the exam or prepare their exam, may they not consider this or some factors in their mind about what I need, what is my purpose, okay? Back to Mr. Tariq example, that my students able to use the knowledge they learn in the classroom in the lab, which is mean are they able to transmit or to use or to apply the implement. One more fact that we need also to keep in our mind, the good test or the good assessment actually should lead us to assess the vocational and practical learning, not only as also mentioned the information. Okay, now we will back again to hear from you respected teachers about your opinion, about your type in assessment. But as Dr. Richa here, I'd like to start with you, brainstorm for all these ideas and different opinions. Okay, what kind of challenges we face when we prepare, when we design, when we plan for assessment, and how we can face these challenges? Okay, I can see here, yes, Dr. Richa, go ahead.
Thank you, Professor. So we have to brainstorm the different types of challenges which are related to these different types of assessments. And as the participants have rightly answered, and I like this poor credibility, especially online learning. So this is one of the biggest challenges, that our tests need to be secure so that we are sure that there's no cheating happening. And there are challenges related to language, different levels, time management, students' perceptions. Now, what we have done is we have categorized these challenges in 3 categories. First type of category is related to the test itself, the grading and feedback related to the test. Second type is related to the students, and the third is related to the teachers. So we are going to cover the first type in today's webinar, and student and teacher related challenges would be discussed on Sunday in the next.
I think Dr. Richa, before we continue in this way, there is some videos I think need to watch them together. What do you think? Back a little bit.
Those will come. Those will come, Professor. They are here.
So you want them now to come with ideas about the challenges, right?
I think let's move on. There is a lot of ground to cover today, and then the videos will come after a few slides. So it'll also give our audience more opportunity to interact if we move on, because there are several questions for them to answer.
So we like to ask them to participate more, right?
Yes, yes, definitely we want their participation. That is how, as we discussed, this webinar is structured. So let's move on. So first of all, we are going to look at challenges related to testing and grading. Mm-hmm. Now,
okay.
So first of all, as Professor Ghanen mentioned, that it's very important for us to be focused on the purpose of evaluation. If the purpose of evaluation is not clear to us, it will be difficult for us to create a test which is useful. So usefulness is very, very important criterion that we have to keep in mind while testing the evaluation. What do we want the test to achieve? So that's the biggest thing. Okay, so first of all, we are going to discuss one very important concept related to design of tests. And these 2 concepts are validity and reliability. So now, as Professor Ghanem said, we need to watch a video. So here is the video. We are going to watch a video, and it's just a very short video, a 2-minute video. And we are not going to tell you what these 2 concepts are. We would want you to tell us what you have understood by validity and reliability. So every test. Okay,
so we'll back again after the video to explain these 2 processes and to see how these are challenges actually for us.
Yes, thank you, Professor. So I'm going to play the video now. Oops, it went back.
So I'm Katerina Forrester-Smith. I'm a senior psychometrician with Limited Education. You can think about it in terms of consistency of scores. if you test a student today and test a student tomorrow, our score is going to be similar, right? If you test one population of students and a different population of students, are you going to be seeing similar scores on the same assessment? And down to internal reliability, if you are administering the first part of the assessment to the students and the second part of the assessments, are the scores on the first part and the second part going to be similar? Are students performing on all of the items within any given assessment consistently? In a nutshell, test validity is whether any given assessment measures what it's supposed to measure. What we're trying to ascertain a lot of the times is content validity and criterion validity. Content validity, when we have item writers writing any given item, we're trying to make sure that the items align to certain standards, for example. In order to do this, we need multiple people making sure that the item aligns to a certain standard, or assessment as a whole aligns to a given number of standards, right? So having 3 people blindly aligning items or assessments to the standards, right? Having that content validity. On top of that, once the assessment is in production, what I do is criterion validity, right? How good of a predictor that assessment is to any other given instrument, any other given assessment. For example, end of year state assessment. So in order to do that, we correlate performance on any given assessment, benchmark any inspect assessment with state test performance or any other valid instrument, for example, ACT or SAT.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Richa. Just I will give 3 questions actually behind validity and reliability. In our mind as teacher, the main question, how I can make my test or my assessment valid and reliable, okay? Before we go through the details about what this means and what that means. The 3 critical questions actually as follow. What sorts of tasks will allow us to observe behaviors that show evidence of effective group discussion, for example, or group work or individual work? How can we ensure that our assessment are as valid as possible, measuring the intended construct in a fair and informative way? How can we use the results of the assessment to inform the teaching and learning of these skills? In conclusion, how I can be sure that my assessment give me the right results, measuring the right skills, and how I can use the data and the results to build next step or curriculum or student behavior. These are critical questions, help us as teachers to understand how much important, okay, to work toward improve our test and to be trusted. Okay, Dr. Richa.
So would anyone like to answer this question? What is validity and how can we make sure that the assessments we design are valid for our learners? I have heard many stories from learners saying that they don't trust our assessment process. They feel that these assessments are pointless, they're meaningless, and they really are not going to help them meet the market needs of tomorrow. So is there anyone who would like to share their views on this? How can we make our assessments valid for developing 21st century skills in our students? In one of the webinars, Dr. Daniela mentioned 21st century skills such as collaboration, creativity. So how can we develop these skills in our students through our assessments? So this is something, this is an important thing that we need to think about. So
yes, true.
If anybody would like
if you read here the short and simple definition for each process, validity and reliability, you can answer simply this question asked by Dr. Richa: how you make your or improve the validity and the ability of your assessment. Like to hear from you guys, please. Okay, Mr. Omar, anyone? Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, sir.
Lovina, right?
Yes, Navina.
Yes. Yes. Yes, please.
Actually, this question is very much related to something Dr. Daniela did, and I had commented upon this because when Dr. Daniela was giving her presentation, one of the points she mentioned was this, that is, her mom happens to be an accountant, and her mom complained about the people, the interns that would come from the colleges or the universities, and the fact that they will not be able to, get the job done. They're not able to make the entries properly. They're not able to get into the books of accounts properly. So I had commented in her presentation because guess what? I'm an accounting teacher.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I remember. I hear you,
yes.
Accounting teacher. Yes.
Yeah. So I had given this comment and this observation that this is happening because the students are prepared for marks. Yani, as an accounting teacher myself, I teach them about the statement of financial position, the income statement, cash flow statements, and all these things. And I prepare them theoretically, and their goal is to get the highest marks, to get 100% or A star, and then move out of school. So in this midst, where am I preparing them for their career in the accounting profession? I am not. The validity of my tests are at, there's a question mark against the validity of my tests because my tests are not containing any question which is going to equip my students to be able to get into their job with very limited internship time. As in business, every time is money. So the more number of the more more time the personnel spend in training a newcomer, that much time they are wasting. So the objective of from our side should be that when our students go and join a firm, they should be able to get into the mainstream of that particular firm, of the company, and start doing their jobs. The training wheels have to be removed quickly. Our tests are not doing that. The validity is completely, questionable when it comes to this. That's my observation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. One more also comment, participant, please.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Miss Fatima.
Miss Fatima, yeah. Sir, according to the definition reflected or presented on your screen, I can tell you that a basic definition for validity is that, let's say, an instrument is valid if it is measuring what it intends to measure in the assessment. So it's easier for us to understand this definition by just looking at the two sentences written in there. But let me give you an example. One time I gave a reading comprehension test to my students, and one of the students forgot her glasses. And then she told me, Miss, I have a problem, I can't see. And then I said, okay, let me help you read it, because I cannot tell her, like, you need to go home, get your glasses and come back. That at that time, everything will be done. Then I felt like really guilty because maybe I had to think about the font of my test rather than thinking only about the assessment. You got my point. Yeah. So other students told me, you don't need to read for her. She knows how to read because, let me say, she's a highly literate student, but with, let's say, a bad eyesight. I was thinking that she may fail the test, she may not, but if I'll help her, what would I do? Because if I'll help her, I need to help other students reading the text for them. So I was questioning myself. She can't physically read the passages that I was testing them on. So this test, even I was thinking about assessment, to Bloom's taxonomy, differentiating my questions, reaching upper levels, lower levels. But then I ended up that validity is not only that what we think as teachers, that, okay, let's make it valid because I'm measuring illiteracy. No, though it may be valid measuring her eyesight instead.
Yes.
This is just one example. So let's say, as the lady said, Lovina, validity can be divided into several different categories, some which relate to very closely to another, and the discussion is endless, let's say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Fatima. This is a very, very effective idea, and remind me as a psychologist also to add one important fact, that it is important that the difficult issues, as you mentioned, the way they interact, the way they apply them, the way they understand and read the questions, all are part of the what we call social or psychosocial dynamic of individual and group and background and culture, as also Dr. Reem mentioned in her presentation about the diverse classes and background. All should be integrated and considered when we come to write the questions. The validity, not only just to trust the question, also to trust that our students can understand what we mean and what we aim, what is the goal behind this question or that question. This is actually one of the important, let me say, or future figure to validate our test or our examination. And I give you example that in many countries now, they start with a task force, for example, and big efforts now also by research about how to improve, how to change the idea of just validity that I write geographic or social science or accounting questions and ask students to answer. No, validity also should be considered the psycho-emotional, social, dynamic group and individual, the way, and as Dr. Richa mentioned, the way they read the language background, as also you answer in one of the slides for one of the questions, right, about these factors affect and influence the way we prepare and design or even plan for writing or preparing tests or exams. Dr. Richa, do you like to hear from one more example?
Yes,
I like
somebody
one
would
more
like
because I feel that they have a lot of
very interesting points to make. Yes.
One more. Okay, Mr. Omar.
Excuse me.
Yes, again.
Yes, again. Okay. I hope what I'm going to say will be useful to some of us, or maybe to most of us. The assessment starts from taking the content into consideration. When we take any content, first of all, we need to set certain clear objectives for what we are going to learn. Students need to know the learning outcome to be very clear and very specified. So after that, when we put our assessment, when we plan for our assessment, we will assess specified objectives, and our questions will be very clear for the students. Also, we will take into consideration the differentiation between the students. And the questions will be in different levels according to Bloom's taxonomy. So some students will be able to answer the low-level students, and the critical thinking questions must be included, and something like this. So this is what I want to add. So
thank you.
Very clear, specified questions about specified objectives that the students have learned, so they will know that they are going to be assessed about what they learned before. So they need to know before the exam in what things, and they need to have an idea about the types of questions they are going to answer.
Yes. Like this. Thank you, Mr. Yes, you are right. Absolutely, you are right. We need to consider and to explain the objectives, the expectations, what we expect from the students. This will help them to feel that this assessment, again, part of learning process. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Richa, back to you.
I think, yes, these are all very valid points. And for designing 21st century assessments, we need to see whether we are actually targeting skills such as problem solving, such as collaboration. So these things are very important when we design our assessments. Okay, yes. So I think we have had a good discussion on validity of assessments, and we should now move on to the next point, which is about, it is a quote about validity of assessments. Good assessment does not mean valuing only what we can measure, but
Yes.
finding ways to measure what we value. So
Yes.
we don't have to design our assessments on the basis of comfort or ease. We have to find new ways, some creative ways of assessing new skills. So that's important. And then we'll move on to, I think we are done here. So we'll move on to reliability. And I would like our participants to tell us, now reliability, as we already have discussed, is consistency. So consistency of scoring when we measure two different, when we grade two different students or one student on different questions. Reliability is also related to raters. So we have discussed reliability. You know what reliability is. What are the ways in which we can make our assessments reliable or consistent? How can we make sure that we are grading all our students in the same manner, that there's no bias or subjectivity coming in? By using different situations and settings, yes. By using table of specifications, yes. So rubrics, using rubrics is definitely one of the ways, one of the very important ways of making our tests reliable. Using standards, differentiation, that's very important so that we are just and fair in what we are assessing. Using a marking scheme. Okay, so most of the participants have referred to rubrics or table of specifications in some way, which takes us to our next video. It is about rubrics. So I know most of you are using rubrics.
Can Dr. Richa, if you allow me, can just wait a little bit to give chance to one of participants here. He's keep trying to participate, and he's sent question like complain that nobody give him chance. So
we
kindly ask Mr. Omar to give Mr. Ayman Ibrahim chance to speak and to participate. But quickly, Mr. Ayman, please, your opinion.
Yes. Hello. Good evening, everybody.
Yes, Ayman.
Hi. Good evening.
It's just a quick point. It's about reliability and validity. So the question is, does all this talk about validity and reliability mean that we need to conduct some kind of statistical analysis on classroom quizzes and stuff? I think although you may on occasion want to ask maybe one of your co-teachers to verify the content or the validity of of an assessment, I think that we should, or I should, be aware that of the basic tenets of validity and reliability as I construct my classroom assessment, and I should be able to help students and parents interpret the scores also for the test or the assessment that I'm working on. So that was my.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. Hope now you are happy, right? Thank you so much.
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dr. Richa.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. Yes, I completely agree that we do not need to run statistical analyses for our regular tests. These are only for high stakes tests. For the regular tests, I think we need to have more transparency, as you said. All the students and their parents, even the stakeholders, they need to know how we are grading and why we are grading that way. So thank you for
I think also, Dr. Richa, you agree with me when I mentioned that using this result also as a kind of accountability purpose in front of the government and community and stakeholders. That's why we need to be sure that what results, the results we receive or gain from these tests should be valid and give, as you mentioned, in very transparent way and level to the community and to the government in order to enhance and to improve, again, our schools. This is what I mean by accountability related results and data gained by testing or by assessment.
Okay. So should we play the video, Professor?
Yes, please.
We have spent some time learning about culture and critical thinking, but how can we assess our work in these areas? One way to assess this is through the use of rubrics. In this video, we will discuss what rubrics are, how to create them, and how to use them to assess our students. Some assignments are easy to assess. When there is one right answer, grading can be fairly simple. For complex tasks, we need to consider several factors. This is when a rubric can be very useful. A rubric specifies first what is being evaluated. These are the evaluation criteria. For example, when grading an essay, a teacher might choose to focus on the organization of the essay, the content, and the grammar and mechanics. Next, a rubric describes the different levels of mastery. In this rubric, the teacher can describe the essay's organization as inadequate, adequate, good, or very good. Each area will be assessed like this. In addition to evaluating the organization, the teacher will also assess the content and the grammar and mechanics. How does the teacher decide which level to choose? Quality definitions for each level of each skill are included in the rubric. The teacher chooses the level whose description best describes the student's work in that area. In this case, the teacher decides that the descriptions for the level good fit the student's work in terms of organization and content. For grammar and mechanics, the definition for adequate is the best description of the quality of the student's work. Rubrics are very helpful for the teaching-learning process. For teachers, a rubric is not only a tool for assessing students, it also helps the teacher clarify learning objectives. This helps the teacher plan activities better. For learners, rubrics communicate what is expected of them. Now that we have talked about the basics of rubrics, let's look at how we can make one. In this section, we will look at some examples of rubrics for critical thinking and talk about ways to create your own rubrics. Step 1, list the evaluation criteria that you will be assessing. This rubric is for evaluating critical thinking, and this teacher has chosen to evaluate listening, reflecting, and explaining. Next, decide how you will rate these criteria. For this, you will need to identify the levels of mastery. If you want 3 levels, you can label them. In this first example, the levels of mastery are developing, accomplished, and exemplary. This example uses needs improvement, good, and excellent as levels of mastery. These words are a little bit simpler and perhaps better suited for younger learners or for beginners. This last example includes levels of mastery related to meeting criteria expectations. When considering what to write for levels of mastery, it's important to think about who your students are and the purpose of the rubric. Then you must write quality descriptions for each level as it relates to each evaluation criteria. The definitions need to be about observable and measurable behavior. This will help distinguish between the levels and help both learner and educator accurately and fairly assess progress. For example, thinks critically is too vague. The level of detail you include depends on your students and context. Here is a completed and simple example of a rubric for critical thinking. This rubric was designed for young learners. As you can see, the criteria are written in short sentences using simple language. They are also written as I statements, which help the learner think about themselves. This rubric also uses images to show levels of mastery. The images could be smiley faces, stars, or anything that might be relevant to students. As long as it is a symbol they will understand. Here are the references used for this topic. And here is some additional reading to learn more about rubrics.
Okay, so we have revised how to create rubrics, and we'll move on to our next question. Somehow the questions are not appearing here. Do you use rubrics? You have to say yes or no. I think it's a yes or no question.
Yes.
Five seconds. Okay, so 51 participants use rubrics, which is a good thing. So if you use rubrics, you might know that there are two types of rubrics. One is holistic and the second is analytic. So holistic rubric is a rubric which has one score for the task, and analytic rubric is based on several criteria. So it has several points for different criteria, and you have to sum up those points to give one score. So holistic is one score, but analytic is divided into several small criteria. Now there are two examples. This one is a holistic rubric, breakfast in bed. There's one score for breakfast in bed, and then all the criteria are mentioned here. So here you have to give just one score, either 4, 3, 2, or 1. This is a holistic rubric. On the other hand, we have an analytic rubric where you have different criteria, food, presentation, and comfort, and you have to grade each criteria and then add up the total score. So these are two types of rubrics, holistic and analytic. I want you to think about these and to let us know which is better.
Yes.
Looks like everyone likes analytic rubric more. Some people say it depends on several external variables. Okay, few, 3 or 4 like holistic better. Okay. All right. So what do you think, Professor? Which one is better, holistic or analytic?
I believe actually in it depends, number one, but analytical one maybe help us to be more aware and include all skills and knowledge, and as I mentioned at the beginning, the attitude and aptitude. Because when we set criteria and considering these, as I mentioned, the factors related to the personality, style, environment, culture, aptitude, the way, learning style, etc., all are considered when you write and prepare or plan for the rubric. Okay, in the holistic, actually, sometimes easy again, but not enough to give you full picture or understanding about the students, about their future, about their ability, what they can do. You see, this is why I prefer the analytic one. And number one. Number two, also like to hear from colleagues here about their opinion, because maybe as some of them mentioned, that it depend on what? Depend on the subject, depend on other factors. Let us hear from them about what they prefer. They mentioned that analytic, but why? We need to hear from them why. Yes. Anyone like to give example about why he prefer using holistic or analytic one as rubric? Yes, here Suha mentioned that it depends on the complexity of the task. You are right. It depends on how many skills are tested. You are right. Okay, and the question again for Christine, I repeat it. Okay, tell us why you prefer, why you, when you design your rubric, okay, which one you use, the holistic or the analytic? Why? Is it depend on the subject or depend on other factors? This is the question. Yes. Mr. Alim said that for me, it's more fair for the students, the analytical. Fairness, okay, could be. Yes, and also, Ms. Suha, I also mentioned to her answer how many skills depends. Okay, Ms. Ghada, more specific. Which one more specific? Yeah, Ghada, you mean the analytic one more specific or the holistic one? Okay, but again, if you look here to this table, you can find that there is different levels of reliability and practicality. Which one more practical? Again, the holistic one, because the analytic one maybe needs more time to design, to plan. You need to think about many standards or criteria, right, Dr. Richa? Because again, if I want to design a rubric using the analytical approach, I think I need to consider every single individual, which is more and more and more need time and complicated. Yes, the impact, as you see here, actually the holistic give you in general ideas about the students, but in the analytical give you more details, which is able to use the approach of diagnostic information. You can get more specific information. Okay, here someone said that analytical rubric is useful in providing feedback on areas of strengthening. Yes, this is related to the diagnostic level or idea. Analytical more fair, give concrete decision. Yeah, it could be because this provides us with more details and being more fair and understand all the circumstances and the related factors affect the student's learning and the way he or she answer or interact. It depends on the topic and the materials. Okay, yes, this is true. Also, the students can get the comprehensive feedback of why they got a certain score in analytic rubric. Yes, they can get more details about where exactly they need to improve themselves. Holistic gives attitude of students. Yes, actually, this is true. It depends on the objectives, as also Ms. Christine mentioned. Yes, thank you. These are very good comments, actually. But by the end, I believe myself that analytic will help more in building and preparing students for the future. And this is what I repeat, that why we need to change a little bit, for example, from holistic to analytic, because my concern is to build new or to design new approach or new tool, help the students to become more aware about themselves. Self-awareness, very important. We need to prepare them for the future. Then we need to provide them with let me say, comprehensive information, cover everything about their levels, their weaknesses, the area they need to improve, etc. Yes, Dr. Richa.
I completely agree with you, Professor, and I think most of our participants have also given in useful feedback. So definitely an analytic rubric would look at specific traits, for example, in writing. So if we are marking a piece of writing holistically, then one aspect of writing might overpower other. For example, a student has very good vocabulary and grammar, but no content and organization. So we wouldn't know, how the student got 7. We wouldn't be able to give good, valuable feedback to the student. Whereas if we have analytic rubric, we can say, okay, content and organization is 5 out of 10, but vocabulary and grammar is 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. So it gives a clear picture of abilities of students.
Yes, one more benefits, Dr. Richa, also that in analytic approach, several teachers should work together. And this is actually prove the importance of collaboration, right? Because when they work together and agree and select the criteria for the different type or level of performance, right? They all be aware and agree about how to deliver, how to improve students, and they can find out who need more work or services or improvement. For both, by the way, for students and for teachers themselves, they will become more aware about what I need to teach and to write and to add my materials to align with all levels and the students.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Professor. Now we'll move on, because we are talking about rubrics, we will move on to those skills which are hard to assess. So now I want our participants to tell us that when they grade group work, do they give individual grade, group grade, or both? And which is better? Okay, that's interesting. There are pros and cons of both. So if we give only individual grade, it does not motivate students to work collaboratively, which is very, very important. On the other hand, if we give a group grade, people or students would not be motivated to work hard because they'll think that it's unfair. So students perceive individual grade as fair, but because it's a group work and the purpose of group work is to motivate collaboration, I think, yes, giving both individual and group grade would be better, though it would be a bit more expensive because the teachers would have additional work. So what's your view on this, Professor?
If you allow me just to add one important thing, that this is really very hard to assess, right? Because again, if we consider the group dynamic and the way and the cultural background, very important. I frankly speak that I myself face problem assessing my students when they work in group, right? Because may we have lack of information about each one or every individual inputs or contribution. I believe it is part of the culture. If we build the culture about the collaboration and about the teamwork actually and about the limitations, I think we can improve the way we assess the group work. But if we still in this culture, I think in the students' culture, that one do the job, right, and other get the benefits, and this is very important to keep in our mind. That's why we need to consider also and to prepare well for the rubric. And teachers, as you mentioned, may need to spend and give more time in designing the rubric, considering all these factors, as I mentioned again, the group dynamic, the social background, the cultural background, and even the schooling system itself. But again, assessing collaborative problem solving and group dynamic actually very important, because you are measuring and evaluating the capacity of both the individual work and the group work, and you in indirect way, okay, changing the way of how students study and learn, and by somehow we try to build the new culture. But we need teachers actually to be aware about how and what are the standards, how they can be sure that this is a group work and this individual. That's why I like these 45 answers about that. We need to consider both, because we want to improve the group work, but at the same time, we want to improve the individual learning, right? And this is actually the positive side of differentiation. We have many students, they have high creative ideas. We need to improve them, right?
Which takes us to our next question for our participants.
Yes.
Just a second.
Yes, here as also we receive from colleagues here, poor communication and unequal contribution may be the biggest issues we face in group work. Yes, agree with you. Individually great and the group great, both are important. Yes, also I agree with you. So that's why I repeat that it is like the art, okay, of teachers. It is related to teachers, how the way they recognize and understand their students, then they can prepare and design their rubric for the group work. Sorry, but just I want to mention to these comments from our colleagues here. Okay, Dr. Richa.
So 32 participants have mentioned that peers should assess each other's contribution to group. So when we are creating rubric for group work, we should have a criterion wherein peers give marks to each other for contribution. So what do you think, Professor? Should this be done or not done?
Well, actually, another important issue we need to consider. Also, frankly speaking, that even in our level, we face this challenge. Peer review sometimes misunderstood, right? People may guess or believe that or think that you are evaluating them as persons, as individual, which is wrong. I'm evaluating and reviewing your work in order to improve you and to improve me and to help me and to help you and to support each other. Same, we need to create culture between our students. As teachers, we need to raise their awareness about evaluating your work doesn't mean that we are judging you. And your peers here, your friends, your colleagues in the classroom aim to support you. This is number one. Number two, actually, I like the idea of peers because I observe, I watch this during my visits to the schools that, yes, students, they like this way. They feel that they are supported from each others. And this is actually well observed by myself, and also maybe my colleagues agree with me. I really understand that how much is important, and we need to improve again the culture of when I give my opinion, when I give you my opinion about your work, okay, I want to help you and I want to learn together. And this is actually related to the learning community. And by the way, the future of learning, the future of assessment should be within group. And this is very important. Again, to create the culture, this is the challenge. So when working in a group, peers assist each other. I myself believe that it is okay. But again, how we can improve this? How we can avoid some, like, let me say, negatives influence from peers toward each others. May here like to hear from teachers how they support peers evaluation or peers review or assessment. Is it okay, Dr. Richa, to hear from colleagues
yes.
how they use this approach in their schools? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, like to hear from you. Okay. Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, Hasmik, right?
Hasmik. Yeah, this is Hasmik talking. So thank you very much for this interesting topic. Usually I am at higher education. I have students, mainly engineering students, and we have this peer review, peer feedback quite extensively. We use it in our group work, and the peer, sometimes it feels that the peer pressure plays a big role in their giving really relevant feedback. And in the place I work, it doesn't seem really like a bad thing. I absolutely agree that this must be in the culture. We must teach our students not to be afraid of peer feedback, and it's nothing bad, but it's there to help them. And to help them to give peer feedback, we can still give them some criteria, some guidance. So this is how they can do the peer feedback.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Hasmik. Thank you. Good idea. Here, Lovina, also again, as a business teacher, I have a different task on this. May I speak? I will give you a chance to speak, Ms. Lovina. No worry, just let us hear from another colleague, then back to you. Okay, Mr. Omar, will you allow someone to speak?
Hi. He has allowed me to speak.
Okay, okay, thank you.
I will make my point very quickly.
No worry.
Actually, as a business studies, I teach business and accounting. As a business teacher, I have to make sure that my students understand something. Individual performance does not matter here, because in a business, everybody has to get along very well with everybody else. And if the business has to succeed, then everybody who is in the business will have to work to his or her highest potential. So here, when I'm dealing with my boys, I have to make sure that they understand that I'm not going to be marking them individually when I give them a group work, because I have to get them to understand if they work together only, the boat will float. Otherwise, it's going to sink. So this is my take on this. And before I give them a group work, I actually prepare them well so that they can each, assess each other. And they should not be judgmental. They will have to help each other if they want to win.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you so much. Yes. One of colleagues here sent a message that her son at university and complained about the member group work assignments because they don't all work the same. How However, it is almost like the hidden curriculum. Well, this is very true, and this is what we all agree about. Two things important here: the culture of work together and being peer review to each others, and collaboration. The meaning of collaboration, the meaning of collaborate, actually very important to improve. Then we can move to use peer review as a tool in assessment. When we design it very well, I think we can use this tool in a good way, and we can use also the results to change again the attitude and the perspectives of people about this kind of assessment or evaluation. In group work, maybe some students can take free ride. Yes, you are right. And here, Ms. Alia again in Arabic, I'll translate it quickly that yes, you are right. Same idea that some members, they depend only on one and other do the job. So based on all these comments, actually, let us think all together how we can improve, what we need to improve and to change among students and school community to improve the peer assessment or peer review as a tool in assessment. Okay, Dr. Richa, back to you.
So let's move on. I think we don't have a lot of time left and there are still a few points to cover. So yes, we are looking at the challenges in grading. We have looked at group work, and the next point is related to portfolios. So portfolios, I think you all must be using and you must be aware about portfolios. Let's watch a short video about portfolios.
So in our classroom, all of the students have a portfolio and documentation book. Each month, Mrs. Ham works with the students to reflect upon their writing. So writing samples are selected, the personal best of the month, and then she asks students a little bit about the writing that they've collected.
During the month, I'll collect their work, and then I'll put it aside, and at the end of the month, I will sit down and just sort through their work and ask them why they, to pick their personal best work for the month, and then they'll pick it out, and then afterwards I'll sit down and talk to them about what kind of work it was and why it was a personal best, and so that's what we do for the monthly writings.
We also have photo documentation of play-based learning, which we connect with the curriculum. We describe what happened. We specifically set the context for it. Beyond that, there are some fine motor assessments. We combine inquiry-based learning documentation as well. So this student participated in an inquiry called Treasures, Tinkering and Learning, our toy inquiry. And there's a little brief 2-page description of what happened in that inquiry. So it's a combination of assessment, math interviews. So here you can see a patterning interview. It is write-ups from inquiries, play-based learning photographs, as well as an interest interview at the beginning of the year, and a family survey where the family gets an opportunity to share a little bit about what they enjoy reading, what they enjoy doing as a family, and how we can support that learning and extend it into the classroom. And then again, the interview that we completed with each child to learn more about why they're special, what they bring to the classroom, and what they're interested in.
So as we know, portfolios are a record of students' own learning, and getting our students accustomed to keeping portfolios is considered one of the best practices in the field of teaching and learning. So we would like our participants to tell us a bit about portfolios and to tell us whether or not they'd like to use portfolios. So here is a question for them. I use portfolios for assessment because. So like, what are the reasons why you would use portfolios in your assessment scheme? Are there any positive things related to portfolio assessment? Some benefits of using portfolios for assessment that you could think of? It allows for reflection. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, that's important.
Yes.
Students get to track their progress, so they have more trust
Yes.
in the process. They'll see, okay, I developed,
Yes.
I grew from point A to point B to point C, so they can see the
Yes.
growth. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your feedback. Okay, so we all know about the positive aspects of maintaining portfolios and grading using portfolios. Can you think of something negative? Why would you not use portfolio? Why do you not use portfolios for assessment? What are the difficulties? Why would it be hard to evaluate portfolios? This is, I do not. Takes time and effort. Takes time and effort. Yes, that is a fair point. It's very difficult to grade all the tasks which are there in a portfolio. It's time consuming, which might make the grading process less reliable because you cannot grade every task rigorously. So yeah, takes time, hard to track, time consuming. So I think that is the biggest thing. Also, I used to use portfolio to give in-class participation marks, 10%. And I realized that I was too easy with students. And you know, the difference between the students who really gave their best and the student who did not participate enough was just a few marks. So this also tends to happen when we use portfolios in class. We are too soft or too easy in our approach, which might lead to grade inflation or something like that. Professor, do you have something to add here?
Yes, actually, yes. These are very valid points. I agree with all colleagues here about the somehow difficulties or disadvantages, but at the same time, let me also think with you about the future. Okay, now in the market, there is no mercy. Okay, when our students graduate, they will face the real situation, the real life. Let me give example. I finished from high school and want to introduce myself to any college. Okay, first of thing, they will interview me. They will ask me to speak about myself, right? If I don't have experience, which is actually can be get by preparing and developing my portfolio, putting all my efforts and tasks I did, activities, etc. It's a way to marketing or to market or to introduce myself. Number one. Number two, also it helps me again to be aware about how to align with the market, with the market needs, with the next level. Okay. Number three, it helps me to evaluate myself. Self-evaluation, self-assessment, very important. So I really recommend to all colleagues here to think serious about using portfolio as a way or as a tool to come with full and comprehensive assessment, including the personal issues and the individuality should be clear here. We encourage our students. The way to encourage them is to encourage them using a portfolio. But again, we need to be sure that we have clear criteria as much as we can, of course, to avoid some like wasting time or not being fair or missing some tasks to be like corrected or reviewed, etc. But I see this is one of the future tools in assessment. We have to be ready for this.
Thank you, Professor. Okay, so this is our next point. We have two types of tests. Some tests are criterion referenced and others are norm referenced. So criterion reference tests are like the tests we have at universities and schools where we have a set of criteria, we have a rubric and we give feedback using the rubric, we grade using the rubric. Norm reference tests are those tests in which there are no criteria as such, but we report the results of a student with respect to another student, like the SATs, where the students get their scores in terms of percentiles rather than percentage. So these are two different types of ways of reporting test scores. So related to this, I have a question for you. Do you think assessment should be criterion referenced, norm referenced, whether it depends, or not sure? Norm referenced, depends. Nobody would say they should be norm referenced because, okay, we have few participants saying they should be norm referenced. It depends, yes. Both types of methods of reporting results have their pros and cons. Like when you have criterion referenced scores, they actually assess a student's level. You can give feedback on the basis of that, but a norm referenced test does not tell much about a student's ability. But these kind of test scores could be used for placements, for example, wherein we don't have many seats. So we need to look at comparative scores. Norm reference scores are also useful when we are reporting results to someone who does not know anything about the test. So they just need to know whether the student stood in top 5% or top 10%. So except these situations, I think criterion referenced scores are good. What do you think, Professor?
Yes, I agree totally with you, because as you mentioned that the norm reference actually give or represent one group, okay, within a big community. And I cannot, for example, generalize, or there are some like minorities or background, cultural, so the standard is different. But the criterion actually, maybe the good example, the national, for example, test built based on huge number of samples, and they present different categories and the groups and ages, and we classify or organize all the standards, let me say, or criteria in proper way. So yes, I agree that criterion much better. At the school level, actually, it should be decided by the teachers themselves. If they want, for example, all to agree about one set or group of criteria for some subjects, it could be okay. Then they can use the norm just for the purpose of classifying students in the classroom, or yes.
So both could be used simultaneously.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor.
We have some comments here. Thank you, Marine, for your comment, and also thank you for Guide who mentioned to the e-portfolio. If you back a little bit to the portfolio, yes, nowadays we have e-portfolio because you know the again online distance, etc., required to consider this e-portfolio to the basis of evaluation, but in proper way. Okay, Dr. Richa.
So the next point is feedback. So we have looked at tests, we have looked at grading. Now we are moving on to feedback. So I would like to know from you, what are the ways of making feedback efficient? We all know that sometimes students don't even bother to look at feedback. You write a lot of feedback on their exams, but they don't even read the feedback. Sometimes you give the feedback, they would even read it, but they do not know what feedback actually means. They don't understand what you have written. So also giving feedback is time taking, you know, it takes a lot of time for us to write comments on students' work. So there are two aspects to it. First of all, how can we make it easy for us to give feedback? The second thing is, how can we make our feedback effective, impactful? How can we make sure that the students engage with the feedback we are providing them? So here, yes, constructive feedback. We are also probably looking at efficiency here. Yeah.
Positive things. Yes.
Yeah. So these are all very good comments. And let us first watch a video which shows us how to give feedback efficiently, like how to make the work easier for us, for the
teachers,
for the teachers, for the raters.
Yes.
Yeah. Oops. Okay. You have to. Where's the video? Looks like the video is not there. Okay, it's fine. I think the video is not playing. There's some problem with this. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Well, there were a few things like give feedback only to those tasks which are most important. You don't have to give feedback to everything. You can use peer feedback. And like most of you have told us already, There are several ways of giving effective feedback, and our participants have already answered our next question. What type of feedback is most effective? And most of them agree that we need to have both oral and written to decrease the cognitive load on our students, because they do not understand written only feedback. It's difficult for them to process. Sometimes we also use meta language, critical language in our feedback, which they don't understand. So mixing both is good. Oral followed by written is the most preferred. Professor, would you like to add something?
Yes, actually, what in my mind, two things. To whom we are giving this feedback. If I give feedback to my students, first of all, I need to understand their personality, and some of my students, maybe they don't like to speak in front of others. We need to consider this psychological and social aspects. Number two, if I give feedback to parents, this is another issue. Number three, if I give feedback to the teachers. But let us focus on the students, okay? I believe that both important to be considered by teachers, but in a very, very careful way. Again, if I feel that if I speak orally or give oral feedback to one of my students in front of others, by the way, she or he will come to fight or complain, right, in my office. And this is very important. So it depends on the situation, depends on the level of the students, we need to avoid some like critical stages, okay? I don't encourage to speak, for example, or to use oral feedback for the middle school level, right? They are adolescent and teenagers, so they maybe don't, right? Maybe. But again, give written feedback to the students should be also in a very clear and proper language, as you mentioned, right? To understand the message exactly you write in your feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. We have just one more point to discuss, the last point, which is related to authenticity of the assessments. So we have a short video here. I'll play this video, and then I'll ask our participants to tell us what they understand by authenticity and what do authentic assessments mean. So I'm going to play this now. Would anybody like to comment on the definition of authentic assessments or the meaning of authentic assessments?
Yes.
Because after that, we have a task for you. So what are
yes.
authentic assessments?
This is for me, right?
Yes, Professor. Now, okay.
Okay. Actually, many assessments ask learners to choose a correct answer, okay, from a limited number of choices. This type of test actually contain multiple choice, true or false, matching, or fill in the blank terms. Each question have one correct answer. An authentic assessment presents learners with a complex task that requires application of new skills to solve a problem or create a new product. For example, if the objective is for learners to produce, for example, communication plan for a project charter, they could be asked to document specific challenges related to communication, etc. My idea that creating questions, okay, creating tasks connected or from the real life as you watch in the video will help them to be aware about what you assess or what you assessing, okay, and why you assessing me. You want to see me how I use my skills, my knowledge, my understanding in the real life situation. As you also watch in the video, exhibition, role playing, acting. This actually very easy. So authentic actually measuring, evaluating, assessing students based on the real life situation, not on the classroom activity or in the classroom tasks. This is simply the definition of authentic, as you also saw. Okay, any other comments or any other feedback about the importance of this type of assessment? I know someone may say this is difficult or hard or need long time to prepare the situation, the tasks, the activities, but by the end, it helps you as a teacher, okay, to see the impact of your teaching and how your students grow and improve themselves.
Yes, Professor, thank you so much. Authentic assessments definitely deal with the practical aspect of learning rather than bookish knowledge. And we need to really have authentic assessments for vocational skills, especially, and for all the skills that we want our students to develop. So based on this, there is a little task for our participants to do. So, okay. They have to think of one authentic assessment in the subject area with real life significance. So field trips, role models, application labs, hands-on real world, diagnostic assessments, real life problems, role play, okay. Use of membranes to clean wastewater, yes. Science fair. So these are few assessments, Professor, that our participants have suggested, which is all very good. Thank you for this participation, everyone. So I think we would summarize what we have done today. We began with importance of assessments. We looked at the difference between assessment and evaluation. We also discussed the different types of assessments and purposes. And finally, we looked at challenges related to assessments and grading. So these challenges include validity and reliability, holistic and analytic scales, evaluating how to assess skills, creating tests which are criterion or norm referenced, giving effective feedback, and making sure that the tasks that we give for assessment are authentic. So we will stop here now. And day 2, which is Sunday, 31st of January, same time, same link, we are going to discuss challenges related to students and teachers. And then we link all these challenges to 21st century skills, how we can come up with solutions to these challenges so that our students are ready for their future, for the job market. That is all.
And also will answer the big question that do we need or have to change what we are using now?
Yes.
And why, if yes?
Yeah.
If you allow me, Dr. Richa, before you close, just give 10 seconds to one of colleagues here He also asked to participate. Akram, I think his name is Akram. Can you, Mr. Omar, give him a chance to speak, just because I am empathic with those are really want to participate, but may they yes. Akram, yes, Mr. Akram, quickly, because we almost finished.
Okay.
Mr. Akram.
Okay. خلاص.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Please, we would love to hear.
Really, I was hesitant to participate in order just to give the chance to other colleagues. But since like the time is over right now, خلاص, I thank you so much.
No, it's okay, Mr. Akram. We do have some time, and we would love to hear from you.
No problem. No, just I want to comment on the feedback, because since thank you so much for covering everything very quickly in terms of like feedback. Really, one of the challenges that we face is like students' improvement. And in my point of view, why like these kids are not improving? Because in my point of view, we don't give them the right feedback. Why? Because as all of my colleagues know, that there are characteristics of effective feedback. We need to know what are the characteristics of the effective feedback, how to provide the information about the learning target, what kind of focus that I need just to give to any task or assignment, what kind of information that students need to know in order to pay attention to the effective feedback. And in addition to this, what are the things that as a teacher need to do in written feedback? I need to make sure that students can read it. I need to use the language that students can read or can understand. I need to provide class time, which is very important for students to read it. Give them 3 minutes, 2 minutes to read. Use a strategy of highlighting or coding rubrics or proficiency description to provide like feedback efficiently. And in addition to this one, the most important part, and hopefully not all of our colleagues are using it, avoid using red. Avoid external rewards. This is very important. In addition to this one, we need to inform parents of how feedback will be provided. These are the most important points in like that I really appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Akram, and we will keep some of these points for next meeting. As Dr. Richa mentioned, we have a lot also, and some fun and some activities, inshallah, for our second round of this module. Dr. Richa.
So thank you everyone for participating, and we'll see you again on Sunday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., 31st of January. Thank you so much.
But our workshop for 1.5 hours, and the next 30 minutes will be for the closing session, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if there are any questions, you can send them, and we will be happy to answer both any questions related to technical issues or to our subject. Thank you again, and I'm happy, me and Dr. Richa, to be with you today, inshallah, and next Sunday. Have a nice weekend. Good luck to all of you, highly respected teachers. Thank you.